DiJonai Carrington is on the brink of being dropped by Reebok. And let me tell you what, man, this is not good for DiJonai Carrington at all. And then you have this going on as well. Thousands demand Reebok drop DiJonai Carrington after brutal attack on Sophie Cunningham. Hold her accountable. I firmly support Reebok dropping DiJonai Carrington's endorsement.
DiJonai Carrington is looking around the room like, oh my God, I've never been in this much fire. I mean, it's getting so bad that now her endorsements are potentially about to pull out on representing.
She drops her Crazy Energy colorway athlete sponsored shoe. It's an Adidas shoe. In less than 1 hour online, it sells out in all sizes. She is very happy about that.
Sophie Cunningham just watched her very first signature shoe sell out completely. And honestly, at this point, it feels less like a surprise and more like the natural next step in a season that has completely reshaped how people see her.
Oh, but here it says, perfect. Good job, Reebok, for having a morals clause in her contract and enforcing it by pulling it. Carrington is a bully that the league apparently is protecting. Wake up, WNBA, before someone really gets hurt. You'll get sued because we Americans won't stand for this abuse, dude.
While all of that is happening, DJ Carrington is on the other end of the spectrum entirely, watching her Reebok deal crumble, watching fans turn on her in real time, and watching a single decision on the court turn into the kind of career damage that doesn't just disappear after a week. Two players, two completely different trajectories, both tied together by the exact same moment.
Common sense would have told you not to clothesline Sophie Cunningham from hell. Because you want to know why? The backlash you're going to get from that decision will affect your pockets. And I'm so happy that these brands are now seeing what we've been seeing. A whole lot of BS going on from these players. And I'm telling you right now, more players need to lose brand deals when they do stupid.
What makes this story worth sitting with is not just that one player is winning while the other is losing. It's how directly connected the two outcomes actually are. Cunningham's rise didn't happen in a vacuum, and Carrington's fall didn't either. They're stacked right on top of each other, tied to the exact same play, the exact same week, and the exact same news cycle.
But Sophie Cunningham is the new superstar because of something she said about boys not playing in girls' sports. In fact, what she said was boys should not play in girls' sports. And you can imagine what happened next. There was massive uproar from people who think that boys should be able to play in girls' sports. So Sophie Cunningham was asked about that, and she said, I said what I said. And when she said, I said what I said, guess what? There was even more of an uproar. Psych. People were all like, you go, girl. By the way, this is what she does when she 6'3", which she does a lot, apparently. But that's not all. You know what else people did other than saying, you go, girl? They went out and bought her shoes. These are her like Adidas Sophie Cunningham pink shoes, and you could get a pair, except you can't get a pair. Why? Because they're sold out. People ran out or went online or just they hit Zappos and they bought.
Let's start with the good news, because there is a lot of it. Cunningham's Adidas Crazy Energy PE dropped at $110 to $120 depending on the retailer, and within an hour, most sizes were gone on Adidas.com. Not gone by end of day, not gone by the weekend, gone in about 60 minutes. Dick's Sporting Goods and Hibbett had a little extra stock for people who missed the initial wave, but even that disappeared fast. For a player-exclusive shoe, that is not a normal release. That's the kind of number brands dream about when they sign a player, and Adidas got it almost immediately.
Y'all see what happened when this young lady got ejected from a WNBA game the other day for a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham? Did y'all see that? She got ejected from the game for that flagrant foul right there. And I'll be damned if that wasn't a flagrant too. She mugged her. Damn near came across like decapitating her, for crying out loud. That was definitely a hard foul. Make no mistake about it. Nobody can argue about it. You can say what you want. We know what we saw. No way around it. The Djonai Carrington foul was clearly unnecessary. It was a flagrant foul penalty too. It was absolutely positively correct call. It was called the flagrant two. That's a flagrant two every single damn time in the NBA and
it did not stop at sold out. Pairs that retailed for around $110 started popping up on resale sites for close to $270 sold, not just listed. That's a shoe more than doubling in value within days of release, which tells you this wasn't just Fever fans buying out of loyalty. This was actual sneaker culture paying attention, treating Cunningham's shoe the way people usually treat limited drops from established stars, not a role player who just got her first signature deal. Adidas noticed too, and they have been leaning into the moment hard, reposting fan content, pushing the shoe across every platform they have.
Posted white privilege after getting tossed from the game, but says it wasn't about the foul. Can you explain this?
No, I can't. When she tweeted white privilege, she did it so quickly, it was almost as though she had the phone in her pocket after this foul and she got ejected. So, I mean, to say she wasn't referring to this play or getting kicked out and saying that the only reason she got kicked out and got upgraded is because Sophie Cunningham is white is crazy. It was a crazy thing to tweet, maybe crazier than to try to act like it had nothing to do with the play. So I have no idea what she's talking about. I don't think anybody can have any idea what she's talking about. Bizarre.
Now here's where the story splits, because none of this Adidas momentum happens in a vacuum. Just days before the shoe dropped into this level of hype, Cunningham took a forearm to the face and neck from Djonai Carrington on a fast break, a foul so clean cut that officials didn't even hesitate upgrading it to a flagrant 2 after review. Wind up, contact to the head, player in a vulnerable position, automatic ejection under the rules. Cunningham got up bleeding, furious, and the entire league watched it happen in real time. That single play is the reason this entire situation exists the way it does right now.
But if we are paying attention to what DiJonai Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham, it was not a race-based decision. And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege and to also completely ignore the rules in basketball. You hit her in the head, you drew blood, you didn't connect with the ball at all whatsoever. So to me, it was just very ignorant and to some degree asinine by DiJonai Carrington to suggest that that call was based on white privilege. Have we seen examples of white players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. Have we seen examples of black players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. There was no white privilege involved in that specific call. DiJonai, you hit her in the head and you drew blood.
Because instead of the story ending with the ejection, Carrington posted 2 words on Threads seconds after leaving the court. White privilege, tagging the Indiana Fever directly. No context, no explanation, just that. Sitting there for the entire internet to interpret. And given the timing, given who she just fouled, given whose team she tagged, there really was only one way people were going to read it. This is the moment everything for Carrington started going downhill, and it happened by her own hand, not because of anything Cunningham did or said. The foul itself would have been forgotten in a week. Flagrant fouls happen constantly in this league without turning into season-defining stories. It was the post, and only the post, that changed the entire trajectory of how this moment would be remembered.
DiJonai went to X and responded to Manuel Acho. He said, I never once claimed that the assessment of the foul was white privilege. That was your assumption. Try exercising your critical thinking skills. Know you studied psych. Furthermore, I'm the last thing from ignorant or asinine when it comes to speaking on white privilege. Do your research on that one. Actually went to school, one of the top universities, might I add, to educate myself on this exact subject. I would never use that term as a rhetorical weapon, knowing the historical and social weight it holds without having the proper evidence to substantiate it. So, in your face, Manuel. What I want to know is, then why were you posting white privilege in the locker room immediately after being ejected? What were you randomly sitting in the locker room having just been ejected thinking about when you posted white privilege? And by the way, tagged the Indiana Fever.
Emmanuel Acho didn't let it slide either. On his show, he broke down exactly why the call had nothing to do with race, pointing out that the flagrant was upgraded because Carrington hit Cunningham in the head and drew blood, not because of who threw the foul or who received it. He reminded everyone that hard fouls like that get called across every combination of players in the league, and none of the other ones get labeled with a phrase that heavy. He called the post ignorant and asinine. Strong words, but words that matched how a lot of people watching this unfold were already feeling.
Well, what is that on DiJonai Carrington's feet? She got traded, signed to Reebok, and now all of a sudden, she getting the craziest PEs in the league? Sorry, Asian. Maybe I'm not. We still got beef. We gotta get that closer look. What is that, cow print? She no Doja Cat? Nah, that's gas. That right there is hard. Oh yeah, I'm loving this. The pink laces, the pink hit on the bottom. This is a 10 out of 10 right here. It's gotta be. I love what's going on here. Reebok, release these. Now it's releasing these with
Carrington fired back instead of letting it go, which is really where the backtracking started. Her response read, in part, that she never claimed the foul assessment itself was white privilege, that people were making assumptions, and that she attended one of the top universities specifically to educate herself on the subject. The problem is, that response doesn't actually explain why she posted those two words seconds after getting ejected while tagging the exact team of the player she just fouled. When you get called out, and your response is to lecture the person calling you out about critical thinking. Instead of just clarifying your original point in plain language, it reads as deflection, not correction. Fair or not, that's how the public interpreted it, and once that red sets in, it's incredibly hard to walk back.
Stays here. Reebok is reportedly dropping their endorsement for DiJonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham. Let's go. Oh my God. It's getting real. It is getting very much real for in the field for them pockets. That's what I like to see. Pockets getting hit hard, bro. Hard. Because somebody need to hold these players accountable for the stupidity they have been putting out. Because it has been a lot of stupidity. And to add even more insult to injury, thousands of people are calling for Reebok to drop their endorsement for DiJonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham.
To understand how much this actually costs her, you have to go back to April 2025, when Reebok announced Carrington as one of the faces of its basketball comeback. It was billed as a multi-year deal, positioning her as a brand ambassador for performance and lifestyle apparel, starting with their Djonai sneaker line. At the time, it was a genuinely good look for both sides. She wasn't just a marketing hire, she was someone who had actually earned the platform through her play. That's exactly why this fallout stings so much more than it would for a player who was just a face on a box. She had genuinely built something here, and now it's reportedly unraveling fast.
A lot of people are getting behind this thing, and DiJonai Carrington is on the brink of potentially losing millions of dollars with sponsorship. Here it says breaking thousands of people are calling Reebok to drop. This thing is everywhere, man. This thing is everywhere. So DiJonai Carrington, man, on the brink of losing it all, and you just did too much. I mean, a flagrant foul was enough, but the whole white privilege thing, nasty and uncalled.
Fast forward to now, and reports are circulating that Reebok is pulling back from that deal entirely, with some reports putting the value of what she's losing north of $50 million over the life of the contract. Brand deals at that level almost always carry morality clauses, language that lets a company walk away if an athlete's public conduct creates the kind of controversy that could damage the brand itself. A hard foul is one thing. Teams and leagues handle those through suspensions and fines. A viral, racially charged social media post that a former NFL player is calling out on national television is an entirely different category of problem, and it's exactly the kind of headline a company like Reebok cannot afford sitting next to its name.
Traded to a flagrant foul, penalty 2. Since there's wind-up, impact, and follow-through, high potential for injury, players in a vulnerable position.
I mean, that's an obvious call. And anyone who has watched this league and any other prior flagrants would tell you as soon as they saw one replay of that, that was going to be a flagrant 2.
You could tell watching it live it was going to be a flagrant 2.
And the fan reaction backs that up completely. Carrington reportedly set her Threads account to private after being flooded with comments, described by more than one account as being clowned online, with screen recordings showing wave after wave of criticism stacking up in real time. That's not a small pocket of angry fans either. That's the overwhelming majority of the response, and it happened fast enough that she felt the need to lock her page down rather than ride it out. When a player has to hide from her own audience, that tells you the damage isn't limited to one bad news cycle. Step back and look at the full picture here, because the contrast is almost too clean. Cunningham spent this season being one of the more outspoken defenders of Caitlin Clark, calling out how the league and officials handle the physical treatment Clark gets on a nightly basis. That made her a target for criticism from parts of the league, sure, but it also made her one of the most talked about, most marketable personalities in the WNBA right now. Adidas clearly saw that coming. That's the part that makes this so hard to watch unfold. Not that she made a mistake reacting emotionally after a hard ejection, but that the reaction, the framing, and then the refusal to just own it plainly turned a moment that could have blown over into a story that's now cost her real money and real trust. It's a genuinely strange thing to sit with. Two careers moving in completely opposite directions because of the same 30 seconds of basketball. Cunningham gets hit in the face, handles herself with composure afterward, and ends up with a brand practically throwing money at her a few weeks later. Carrington throws the foul, reacts emotionally online, and ends up watching her own sponsor reportedly walk away.
Where this thing gets absolutely bananas is when you start making it into a race and culture war, and the people talking about it are not mentioning 99% of the time that she went back and tweeted white privilege. White privilege how? You made a dirty play. Sophie Cunningham, everyone's putting up clips of her like tackling a player on a drive, defending Caitlin. You say, well, she got kicked out of the game for that too.
Put yourself in Reebok's position for a second. You signed a player to be the face of your relaunch, someone who's supposed to represent the brand in campaigns, on social media, in every piece of marketing you put out. Then that same player becomes the center of a national conversation about race in sports, gets directly called out by a well-known former athlete and broadcaster on his own show, and then spends days publicly arguing about it instead of clarifying things quickly and moving on. Every single day that story stays in the news cycle is another day Reebok's name sits attached to it, whether they want it there or not. Brands do not need controversy of that specific flavor. That's exactly why reports of the deal falling apart make sense from a pure business standpoint, regardless of how anyone feels about the basketball play itself. Right now, keeping Carrington as the face of Reebok's basketball rebuild means every future campaign gets read through the lens of this controversy instead of through the actual product, and that's simply not a trade a brand in rebuilding mode can afford to make.
White privilege? You gave her a Batman special. What are we talking about? This is what I mean, right, bro? Y'all have turned the WNBA into the softest, most political, race-baiting league in the world. You got women now having meetings about what does it mean to be a woman. This is why people like watching women's college basketball more than the WNBA. We're constantly seeing the Indiana Fever be targeted by other WNBA players because you guys have made the atmosphere comfortable enough to where they think they can do that. It's like when Angel Reese and her team lied about people making monkey noises at her at the basketball game. Basketball is a physical sport. Things happen. But we're not going to start screaming white privilege because you get caught in 4K. I swear, I don't think any other female sport goes through as much drama as the WNBA. It's like Bad Girls Club.
Here's the part that probably stings the most for Carrington. None of this had to happen. The foul itself, as bad as it looked, would have faded into a normal WNBA news cycle within a few days. Another flagrant, another ejection, another round of debate about physicality in the league. Instead, the two words she chose to post turned a routine ejection into a referendum on her judgment, her brand value, and her relationship with her own fan base. She's reportedly gone quiet publicly, locked her account, and is now facing the reality that a deal reportedly worth tens of millions of dollars may not survive the fallout. There's a version of this story where Carrington issues a clear, direct clarification within hours of the original post. The controversy dies down within a couple of days, and none of this ever reaches Reebok's desk in the first place. That version of events was available to her the entire time. Instead, the back and forth with Acho, the lecture about critical thinking, the drawn-out defense of a post that still hasn't been clearly explained, all of it kept the story alive far longer than the original foul ever would have on its own.
When you have one of your players who commits a clear flagrant 2 and then tweets white privilege right after she goes to the locker room, you can't then cry that this is being talked about in racial terms in a culture. She started that. This is a basketball play. The second you go white privilege, and they are talking about it on these telecasts without mentioning what she tweeted. Oh, they're turning into a culture war, turning into a race war. This is our league. Don't let conservatives or the right hijack it. Your player tweeted white privilege, and it had
nothing about this is permanent. Athletes have recovered from worse public relations messes than this one, and Carrington still has time on the court to rebuild some of that trust if she wants to. But rebuilding takes more than talent, it takes accountability, and right now the story is still stuck on the backtracking instead of any real resolution. Until that changes, expect brands to keep their distance, expect Cunningham's Adidas momentum to keep climbing, and expect this comparison between the two of them to keep getting brought up every time either name trends again. The next few weeks matter more than usual here. One player turned a physical, sometimes ugly game into one of the biggest commercial stories in the league this season. The other turned a single ejection into a much bigger problem than the foul itself ever was, and now has to live with a business fallout that's still unfolding in real time. Both stories are still being written, but right now only one of them is trending in the right direction.